Imagine standing in the middle of the Arctic Ocean. Nothing around you but white ice stretching to infinity. The wind is howling. The temperature is 30 degrees below zero. And then, as you look up, you see something unbelievable. A flying city passing right over your head. I'm not exaggerating. In 1928, there was a massive Italian airship called the Italia. It was 115 meters long. That's longer than a football field. And inside, it wasn't just sailors. There were scientists, journalists, a little dog, and believe it or not, a grand piano. A piano, sitting inside a heated cabin, floating over the North Pole. This is the story of that airship. How it vanished into the white silence of the Arctic. How 10 men fought for their lives on the ice for 33 days. And how 6 others simply walked away from the wreck and were never seen again. This isn't just a crash story. It's a mystery that has never been solved. Let me take you back to Italy in the 1920s. The country was hungry for glory, and their biggest hero was a man named Umberto Nobile. A general, an engineer, a brilliant explorer. Just 2 years earlier, he had become the first person to fly across the North Pole. He came home a national icon. People cheered him in the streets. He was on top of the world. And so, in 1928, he decided to do it again. But this time bigger. He built the Italia, a state-of-the-art airship, stronger and more luxurious than anything before it. The cabins were heated. The navigation system was the best money could buy. The crew was handpicked. And yes, that grand piano was real. It sat right there in the main gondola, polished and ready to be played, even at the edge of the world. The mission was ambitious. Nobile wanted a land scientist directly on the ice to study the magnetic field and the weather. For weeks, everything went perfectly. They explored remote regions no human had ever seen. And then, on May 24th, they reached the North Pole itself. They dropped an Italian flag. They dropped a huge wooden cross blessed by the Pope. The mood was pure joy. They celebrated. They took photos, and they turned the airship for home. And then, in an instant, the temperature dropped. A wall of black Arctic fog rolled in, and everything went wrong. The airship started to go down. Fast. The ice rushed up to meet them. When they hit, the sound was apocalyptic. Metal tearing, glass shattering. The control gondola smashed into the frozen sea and broke open, throwing 10 men out onto the ice. And in that moment of chaos, something strange and terrifying happened. With the weight of the gondola gone, the rest of the airship, the massive gas envelope, shot back up into the sky. And inside it were 6 men. They drifted away into the storm, a ghost ship with a silent crew, heading towards a grave no one would ever find. The 10 men, left behind on the ice, were alone. They were injured. They were freezing. They had almost no food. But among the wreckage, they found one thing that would save their lives. A small tent. It was dyed bright red, so it could be seen against the snow. They also found a radio, and they managed to build a makeshift antenna. And so began a nightmare that lasted 33 days. They huddled together in that tiny red tent, drifting on a sheet of ice that was slowly cracking and shrinking beneath them. They sent out desperate SOS signals. And somehow, against all odds, a radio operator thousands of miles away in Russia heard them. The world went into a frenzy. A massive international rescue mission was launched. Ships and planes from Norway, Sweden, Finland, Russia, all fighting through the ice to reach them. But the weather was brutal. One rescue plane crashed. Then another was forced to turn back. And then, the greatest polar explorer on Earth decided to join the rescue. And that's when this story takes a truly tragic turn. The explorer was Roald Amundsen, a Norwegian legend. The first man to reach the South Pole. He had actually been a rival of Nobile. They had argued in the past. But when Amundsen heard the distress call, he put all that aside. He got on a French seaplane and took off into the Arctic haze to save his old enemy. That was June 18th, 1928. The plane was never seen again. Roald Amundsen, the greatest polar explorer in history, vanished without a trace. He became the highest profile victim of the Italia disaster. To this day, no one has ever found his body. Meanwhile, the survivors were still on the ice. Finally, after more than a month, a Swedish pilot spotted the red tent from the sky. The rescue was on, but there was a catch. The pilot said he could only take one person on the first flight. Orders came from Rome. That person had to be General Nobile. Imagine the scene. Nobile, weeping, broken, is forced to leave his men behind and fly to safety. He knew this decision would haunt him forever. And it did. The world would later call him a coward for it. Eventually, all 10 survivors were rescued. But the 6 men who had drifted away in the airship, they were never found. No bodies. No wreckage. Not a single piece of fabric. They simply vanished. Nobile returned to Italy expecting a hero's welcome. Instead, he got a military tribunal. Mussolini's fascist government saw the whole disaster as a national embarrassment, and they needed someone to blame. The official court records still exist today. You can read them in Rome. They accused Nobile of abandoning his men, of incompetence. They stripped him of his rank. They destroyed his reputation. He was forced into exile, a broken man, living in the shadow of a disaster that wasn't even his fault. The real mystery, the fate of the 6 lost men, was buried under political fury. No one wanted to talk about what really happened out there on the ice. But the ice doesn't keep secrets forever. The 6 men remain a locked room mystery in the Arctic. And over the years, 3 theories have emerged about what really happened to them. The first theory is the darkest. Years later, a Soviet radio operator claimed his rescue ship had actually found a lost men's camp, and he said there was evidence they had resorted to cannibalism to survive. The Soviets allegedly covered it up to avoid an international scandal. If that's true, it means the men didn't die quickly. They fought to survive for weeks, maybe months, before the end. The second theory involves an iron box. One of the 6 missing men was carrying a heavy, locked metal box. The official records say it contained scientific equipment, but rumors from Italian intelligence suggest it actually held secret mining contracts, deals with a foreign power for Arctic resources. Was that box the real reason for the mission? And did someone want it to disappear forever? The third theory is the most haunting. For weeks after the crash, radio stations across northern Europe picked up weak Morse code signals. They were on the Italia's frequency, but they came from deep inland, far from the crash site. The 6 men didn't die in the airship. They survived. They walked in the frozen desert, sending signals no one could reach. They are still out there, perfectly preserved, waiting to be found. So, what do you think really happened? Was it a cover-up? A secret worth killing for? Or are 6 men still sleeping in an icy tomb somewhere, waiting for someone to finally bring them home? Let me know your theory in the comments. And if you enjoy mysteries that history class forgot, subscribe and ring the bell. The next story is even stranger.